Assalamualaikum, my name is Arfat and welcome to a brand new video. Today's video will be something different because I wish to talk about something that has nothing to do with religion and with history or theology, but just something that I would like to share. Um, Recently, I've been participating in a particular event, and without giving you too much details because it is really unnecessary. um, but in this event, the way that people approach, the there are two parties to begin with, and so the first party is the one that is managing the other party. Yeah. And so in this particular event, I will just say party A is the one managing party B. So party A is approaching this whole event from in a way whereby it is really demoralizing party B. Not only was the speeches very demoralizing, not only was party A not really communicating properly in a language, in a civil language. I'm not saying that vulgarities were involved. Perhaps vulgarities were not involved, but the approach, the underlying message, the choice of words wasn't always the most, wasn't always the most appropriate for the particular occasion. But I completely disagree, and that's the reason why I'm making this video. I completely disagree with what has happened, and so, I mean, this is just me expressing my opinion. And so, how can we draw a lesson from this? And that is the reason why I want to make this video. In my opinion, if you want to get someone or if you want to get someone on board your ideas or to be a part of your project, for example, the way you speak to people is very important. You should give people respect. You should give people more respect even, and you should be humble, despite the knowledge that you have, despite the knowledge that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has given you. You should always remember that you do not work hard to earn this knowledge. In fact, you can spend your entire life working hard, and if Allah Subhanahu wa Taala doesn't want to grant you any ilm, okay, any knowledge, you will never be able to attain knowledge. And some people are not really wise in their choice of words, and so it affects the other people that they are trying to correspond with. And so with that, eloquency is very important. The dua of Nabi Musa, the dua of Prophet Moses, Qala Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Okay. Oh my Lord, expand my chest for me and make them understand my speech. And so this is something that Muslims should practice if they want to be eloquent. Because the most important thing is your speech, and it's how you carry yourself through your speech. If you want to be someone that orders people around, and if you want the people that you are ordering to actually accept you for who you are, for what you actually do, and to give you the same amount of respect, then the way you communicate your ideas or your thoughts should be in a very appropriate manner. Now, human beings are filled with emotions. We're a very emotional creature, and majority of us actually uses our emotions more than our head. And this is something that we should overcome. This is a major problem in our society, based on my opinion. And we can draw lessons from the Qur'an and even the New Testament. In the Qur'an, Jesus was a very soft-spoken human being. The Prophet Muhammad SAW in the Qur'an, the Prophet Muhammad SAW would actually get annoyed that his companion would actually go into his house. And so, but the Prophet Muhammad SAW will not say this to the people. And so Allah SWT has to reveal in the revelation, so to remind the people, okay, that the Prophet allows you to actually eat with him and it is okay for believers to actually eat in the house of Rasulullah SAW. But do not wait inside the house when the food is being prepared. And once you finish eating, straightway leave, and do not annoy the Prophet. And you should give sadaqah before you engage with the Prophet. And the Prophet will not actually told you off, because he is very, very humble human being. He's a very, very soft-spoken human being. And this is what we found in the New Testament Jesus as well. Okay, the New Testament Jesus was a very praying person. He was very soft in his speech. And so this is what we found in the Qur'an as well. Okay. The Prophet Moses, he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wasn't great in his speech, but he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him support, his brother Harun alayhi salam. And so through Harun alayhi salam, they are able to have a conversation with Fir'aun. Yeah, and so the most important thing, and the most important thing that we lack of, is eloquence. And this is something that needs to be built up amongst our society, and this is something that a lot of people are having difficulty with. In fact, this is the most important thing. You can have zero knowledge, but if you are eloquent, if you treat people with the same amount of respect, and if you are able to convey your ideas and even your frustration across in a sense whereby people understood you, but they understood that you are not being disrespectful to them. In fact, the very speech, the very words, even the arrangement of words that you use within your sentences can either motivate them and make them do things that you do not even need to tell them what to do. Also, the way you arrange your speeches. Okay, if you want to get to the technicalities, there's actually a study of this. Is how you place the object and subject and the conjunctions and everything like that within a sentence. But we're not going to get into the technicalities here. But the way you actually emphasize your point, go straight to the point. Okay, and convey your message in a way, in a sense, whereby it motivates people. It encourages them to take on projects. It encourages them to actually realize that it's time for them to buck up, and they should do something about it. Okay, and also speak to the people in a way whereby you are actually not governing them in a sense, and you are actually allowing their creativity to flow. And this is something that a lot of us needs to build up, myself included. We should use our head more than our emotion. Human beings are very emotional creatures, but when we want to convey our thought and our expression across in a very civilized manner, we should always think before we speak, also think before we write, in a sense. Now, Paul, if we turn to Paul, it is ironic because I do not really believe that Paul was actually one of the apostles, but nevertheless, even in the text of Paul, we can learn something. The reason why Paul is able to influence Thomas Aquinas, Augustine in the 4th century, and all these other preachers along, the church fathers, the Pauline Christianity, the reason why Paul is able to influence a lot of these people is study the way Paul wrote his letters, okay, or dictated his letters. Okay, he is confident in a sense. Okay, although some people would say that he is boasting. Okay, but nevertheless, Paul is confident in his speech, even though the evidence that we found much later on, okay, as to the gospel evidence and in the Q, the hypothetical source Q, but no doubt Q exists, but not physically. It is an oral tradition. It is an oral gospels, an oral saying gospels. Through Q, we know that Paul actually made up the crucifixion of Jesus and the resurrection of Jesus. I mean, Paul never mentioned about this. But Paul mentioned that Jesus appeared to him last, okay, to count himself as part of the apostle. But nevertheless, the reason why Paul is able to influence a lot of people is because look at the way he write, or actually at least dictated him. Okay. Read the Greek, because in the English renderings, sometimes they don't always go by the object and the subject, the predicate object, something like that. But if you read the Greek of Paul, and actually you know a little bit of Greek, the writings that we found in the Pauline corpus is a very influential writing, and which is why it influenced a lot of these people. And so you do not always need to look at a text that you agree on to study something. You can also look at a text that you disagree upon to actually draw lessons from it. In this case, is how you place your arguments when it comes to the way Paul wrote or dictated his letter. He got people thinking, and these are how some of the famous writers actually wrote, and poetries, even and songwriters, even the way they phrase their lyrics. Now, I'm not saying that you should go and explore all this, but nevertheless, the way we speak to people is very important. The way we present ourselves is a big deal. And the way we get our thought across in a huge, in an environment whereby there's a lot of people looking at us. Sometimes nervousness can actually be the sole factor as to why we are not able to actually discern our thoughts carefully and place them into words that actually help people understand us better, and also through that influence them to do greater things, or to do things that you actually wanted them to do, but without being forceful. And the underlying message or the subtext that you actually trying to get to convey across is actually something that they will understand, without you having to verbalize your opinion and thoughts and expressions and all of that. To me, that in that way, you are able to actually influence people. Like Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Alienate People. I think that's the title. I read that book when I was a teenager, probably 14 or 15 years old. And I read How to Win Friends and Alienate People, or something like that. I can't remember. That was a very, very, very important book. And so it helps you express or structurize your sentence and your thoughts, and help you actually to improve your presentation. And this is something that a lot of people are actually not able to do. They do not have within them the capacity to actually express their thoughts and arrange their sentences in a way, and to speak people according to their knowledge, according to their level. Okay, there's no point speaking to people like individually or even as a group. Okay, there's no point speaking to people in a sense whereby they do not understand you, because at the end of the day, all that matters to them is that what are you trying to get them to do. Okay, but the approach that you take must be a subtle one. If you want to reprimand someone, you shouldn't reprimand them straight to their face. Now, it depends on the character, okay, which is why you should learn the people around you. You should learn your peers, because every single human being have a different character. There's no two human beings the same. Okay, there's no robot, there's no mimic, there's no mime, and there's no such things. Even twins have a different fingerprints. Okay, and this is in the Qur'an. Okay, every single human being have a different fingerprints, and so this is the analogy behind that, or the allegory, if you want to use origin. Is that every single human being must be approached in a different way, and you should research, you should study, you should be proactive, and you should also observe. Okay, you should observe the people around you, how they react to certain problems, and this takes time, and this takes constant learning, and constantly interest yourself to actually learn what other people and how other people behave, what are their expressions, what are their thoughts, and it takes a lot of analyzation for you to be able to actually approach people and get them to actually do the things that you want them to do. And this is what this is what we also call learning your audience. Okay, for example, when I give a talk to a group of people, okay, albeit professionally or not, I have to learn the audience. There's no point for me talking to an audience, giving them all these stories, whereas they could not relate. Because once you disconnect from your audience, that is something that is hard for you to recover from. Okay, and I've learned this through my previous endeavor. Okay, I'm not say what, but connecting with the audience is a very, very important thing, and maintaining eye contact with your audience is also a very, very important thing. It shows that you respect them, and listening to the problems of what other people have. When they share them with you, genuinely try to listen to what they have to say, even though you disagree with them. Okay, let's agree to disagree. There's no need to fight over things that you disagree with. In fact, if everyone agrees with you, there's something wrong. It's either they're afraid to express their opinions, okay, or you're just being too possessive, and both of these things are not actually great. Okay. It doesn't matter if people disagree with you. In fact, there should be disagreement, and there should be a platform or room or area, okay, whereby constructive criticism can be put across, and you should be open to receiving such critics. If you are always too possessive of your thoughts and your opinion and your expression, then you'll never grow. Your creativity will sink, and your thoughts and ideas will be old school, and you'll lose focus, and you'll lose the race with time. Okay, you'll be held back, and that is because of your own arrogance and your own ego, and that is something that you need to fix. All of us have egos, and all of us have our own ideas that we strongly hold close to our heart. For example, when it comes to those evangelical Christian, okay, they would not care, no matter how much evidence we put across on the table, to say that the extant complete manuscripts of the New Testament dates to Codex Sinaiticus, okay, 300 years or more actually after the ascension of Jesus, according to the Gospel of Luke. Okay, 300 years. We do not have the complete extent, okay, manuscript of the New Testament before Sinaiticus and Vaticanus. Both these writers pretty much the same time. Okay. And evangelical Christians would not accept this, no matter how much evidence you put on the table. Okay. They will not accept this. Okay. And I'm not saying that they lack critical thinking. Okay. I'm just saying that they are too engrossed in their beliefs. It is just like asking the Muslim, a Christian asking a Muslim to accept that God is actually three. They will never accept this, because in the Qur'an it clearly says, okay, that do not say three. This is, it is much better for you. Your God is one. Your God is Wahid, is one. And so it is good to have ideas that you strongly fix upon. Okay, you are firm upon these ideas. You have yaqeen, you have total submission to that idea. Okay, but that idea must be based on proof. Okay, must be based on proof. In this case, the Quran is the proof, the text. Okay, but you must go a step deeper. Is how do you analyze, or how do you know that the truth is actually the truth? Or in what academics used to say, how do you know that you have concrete proof? Yeah. And if we use, for example, let's move away from religious texts for a bit, and let's look across. Let's compare culture. Okay. For example, the people in Central Asia, they're more conservative, they're more reserved, even though and they're very Islamic. Okay, and some of their Islam is much stronger than where I'm from actually. Um, Even though the people are quite liberal in the outward appearances, okay, but they are very conservative inwardly. Now, what do I mean by this? Okay, you'll find that in Central Asia, based on my research, okay, people down there will be are much more closer to their families. Okay, they actually take the effort to take care of their parents, they do not want they do not entertain anyone that actually even utter a single word that actually is insulting, even though it is indirect to their beloved ones. Okay, when it comes to the woman folk, majority of them were actually stuck close and stay away from all these illicit activities. Okay. And even though some of them actually are liberal in their thinking, whereby they are more westernized in their ideologies, okay, but subtly they are very very conservative in a sense. Okay, they care about the woman, and the man is the head of the family, and then the woman role is to raise the children, is to prepare for the husband and things like that. Whereas if you compare these ideologies to that of the Western ideologies, it is miles apart. Okay, with all this liberalism, with all this feminism, now we're already on the fifth wave feministic movement. Okay, capitalism and Orientalism, and so this is a major disagreement. Okay, or what we call it, unclinging of ideas. Okay, ideas that rest by a hook and it's blown by the wind, and then it unhooked itself and it fell to the floor. And so you have to study the people that you work with, even though you do not work with them directly, as in you do not have physical contact with them. But if you're nowadays, through globalization and through technology, we are able to actually meet with people from all over the countries, and this is what businesses are actually doing, like doing YouTube, for example. Okay, even though on YouTube you have to be general because you do not know unless you go and look at the stats or target audience. But in general, you're trying to make this video. Like for example, I'm trying to make this video from a general perspective, and so it's very difficult for me to actually target a few people unless I'm speaking to them directly. And so the angle that I'm approaching is that to actually target people, to speak to people that you are actually working with, and so you have to study their background. For example, if you're working with people from Central Asia, you have to research. You have to research about them. And I've spent my whole life researching, and because one of my favorite things to do is to actually study anthropology, and so where do human beings come from, and this and that. So that is just my interest. Okay, my interest is in ancient civilization and religion, and so if you know that Alexander the Great brought Hellenistic culture, Greek culture, all the way to the Central Asians. Okay, and then through religion there used to be American Christians, which disagree with the Proto-Orthodox Christians. Okay, and before that there used to be Zoroastrians. Okay, and even during the time of the Manichaeans, they mixed with the court of Seville, okay, Mithras, and so that is based on their theology. Yeah, but based on a social history, a social perspective, based on anthropology. You know, there used to be Sogdians down there. They used to be part of the Kharakhanid Empire. Okay, they used to be the Buyids, the Samanids, okay, the Iranians, the Eastern Turks, the Eastern Iranians. The language is very, for example, if you go to Tajikistan, their language is Farsi, is a dialect of Farsi, which the Iranians speak. Imam Ghazali, no doubt, understood their language in the 11th century, 12th century, 11th and 12th century. Okay, Imam Bukhari was from that area. Okay, and so a lot of history is there, and the way you study history, and if you actually look, the Persians tried to conquer the Central Asians, they failed. The Muslims tried to conquer Central Asians, they failed. Okay, the Mongols came and decimated Central Asia, no doubt, but within a couple of years they rose again. And so people down there are actually, according to S. Frederick Starr, okay, which is a scholar of that region, he published a book he wrote a book called The Lost Enlightenment, published by Princeton, if I'm not mistaken, 500-page book. He underlines all this. The Central Asians are actually smart, and the worst thing that we can do, I'm just using Central Asia as an example, but us living here or anywhere else, if we think that we are smarter than our counterpart, okay, or the people that we are actually engaging with, we are very, very mistaken. Yeah, okay, we are very, very mistaken. We should be humble, because if we are arrogant, okay, if we are arrogant and if we think that we know better than other people, then we should really reconsider our thoughts. No doubt, certain areas we might know more than them, okay, but there are also certain areas, and these areas are at our blind spot, okay, that they are superior in knowledge compared to us. And so no human beings can say that they are the smartest, they know everything, okay. No human being should even have this perception, these thoughts. Okay, these are all ego. And actually the best thing we should do is to reprimand someone whenever they praises us, even though this could be part of stoicism, okay, if you know about philosophy, but without being a stoic in a sense, we should actually reprimand those people that actually praises us, especially public appraisal. We shouldn't accept all this because it is actually detrimental to our mental health. There's nothing that we can benefit from people who praise us, and there is more that we can benefit from those people that actually give us constructive criticism. Okay. The only thing that will affect us in a negative way, okay, when someone praises us, is that it feeds our ego. And as a human being, all of us are enticed by our egos. Okay, and this is actually detrimental to our growth as a human being, and also detrimental as to how we approach and speak to people. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do not like people who are arrogant. Okay, and we should not be arrogant. We should not think that we are smarter than other people. Okay, when we want to educate people, it shouldn't come from a perspective whereby I know more than you, so now I'm putting you in your place, I'm teaching you. Wallahi, you do not teach other people. Okay, the knowledge that you share is much better than to actually teach other people. Okay, all of us share knowledge because we do not have this knowledge to begin with. We do not create this knowledge. This knowledge is actually given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Knowledge is something that you cannot create. Okay, Sophia, wisdom, logos, okay, words, okay, knowledge, ilm. It is something that you cannot create. This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you to begin with. And all you have to do is to pass on this knowledge to other people. Like what I'm doing. The reason why I'm making these YouTube videos and uploading all these videos is so that I can share this knowledge with you. Okay, and you have every single right to correct me if I made a mistake, if I misquote even a huruf of the Quran, you have to correct me. Okay? Even doesn't matter of the Quran, even in Greek or Hebrew. Okay? If I mention a single word, a single alphabet wrongly, you have every obligation to correct me. Okay, and that is how the Quran has been orally preserved, And that is why when an imam recites the Quran wrongly, the congregations will actually correct the imam, and the imam shouldn't feel bad about it. Okay, the imam shouldn't have an ego, and none of us should have an ego. When someone corrected our flaws, it shows that that person actually care. Okay, and those are the people that we want to mix around with. Yeah, and so when someone praise you, you should reprimand that someone. Okay, at least this is my opinion. Yeah, without being a stoic. It doesn't matter if people call you stoic. you know, just pretend you don't know what I mean, even though you know what it means. Stoicism, look it up. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you deal with people, you have to give them respect, and you have to learn your audience. And if you know that you met someone from a certain area, a certain country, and you know that you will be interacting with them again, you have every need. Okay, in fact, it is an obligation upon yourself. You should place this upon yourself to actually research on the social history of that particular person in that particular area. Okay. You should also try to learn a little bit about their language, because one thing I realized throughout my years of traveling, alhamdulillah, is that whenever you utter a word in their language, it completely removes the ice around them. It completely removes the barrier that they had placed. Okay, because some people are too narrow-centric. Their mind is just focused upon themselves. Okay, like for example, I'm not going to mention this country, but I went to this particular country and everyone was just rooted to their phone. Everyone was just minding their own business. Okay, and it is actually detrimental to the mental health of the society. No society can be happy if people do not communicate with one another, and they are not able to express their personal opinion, and they are always being butchered. Okay, to use that word, if they are always being butchered whenever they express their opinion. And this is something that a lot of the Western countries are actually facing. Okay, and if you go to the poorer countries, and alhamdulillah, I've been to some of the most the poorest villages, okay, remote villages in this world, and I see that they are very open. Okay, they have next to nothing when it comes to wealth. Okay, they have next to nothing, but they are the one that are very generous. They are the one that will actually invite you to your home. And this reminds me of the story in the Quran of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Okay, when the two angels or the three angels came to visit him. Okay, in the past, in the ancient land of Canaan, where Ibrahim was alayhi salam, food was scarce. Okay, and so he got a lamb, and actually prepared the lamb. And lamb was a very expensive animal, was a very expensive thing in the past. And so that was also one of the best food that the Prophet Abraham has. And so he prepared his best food. Okay, the food that, we call it today luxury food. Okay, the best item that he has, the freshest and the most fattest and the most healthiest, and he prepared them for these guests of them. Later on, he found out that they were angels because they did not eat or consume the food. But nevertheless, in it is a very great example that whenever someone actually comes to your place, prepare for them the best that you have. Clean the area. Make sure that they are comfortable. They are seated at the best chair, your favorite chair. Okay. The air conditioning is appropriate, and whenever you give someone, give them the best. Or whenever you buy food for someone, make sure you give them the best. And this is from amongst the lesson of the Quran that we can learn from. Okay, we should ponder upon the Quran. We should draw lessons from the Quran. As I've shown and demonstrated in this video, you can draw many lessons. Okay, the Quran, you should not only consult the Quran to find theological and you should not consult the Quran theologically and historically, socially even. You can draw lessons from the Quran by the tons. In fact, everything you can draw lessons from the Quran that will either relate to your personal growth, personal life, or even the people around you, your surroundings, and it can also benefit you and help you in your workplace as to how you actually communicate your ideas across. Okay, the Quran, everything is in the Quran. If you do not actually learn and study the Quran, albeit Muslim or Christian, if you don't actually study the Quran, you will miss out on all these great examples that you can actually learn your lesson from and improve yourself, because everything comes from the Quran. There are tons of advices from the Quran. Okay, instead of consulting your peers, and your peers might give you different answer, the Quran actually gave you the best answer. Okay, the Quran actually encourages one to actually be strong in their opinion, okay, and also to establish this opinion with support, with proof text. And you shouldn't just, find or just say something out of thin air, made up a story. No, the Quran actually encourages you to travel around the world and see what remains of all these people, to travel around the world so you can learn the cultures of other people, and so that you will have tolerance towards them. And when you engages with them with great adab, with eloquence, with soft speeches. Okay, and why did the Quran, or why does the Quran give these advices instead of saying something else? That is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator, is the Khaliq. He created human being, and He has written an instruction manual for us on how we can deal with one another. Yeah. And the advices that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave in the Quran is the best advice. And if you take this advice, you will never go wrong. Yeah. I'm encouraging my fellow brothers and sisters, doesn't matter what religion you are, you will find lessons in the Quran, and you will find how to communicate with other people in the Quran in a way whereby you will not only win them over, and also that whatever you speak will actually inspire them, will get them to do the best that they can do. It will actually remove them from the shell that they have actually enclosed themselves with, and actually to motivate them, encourage them, and at the same time you are actually helping them to success. But just know that it is not you who helped them, but it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay, who assisted them. Okay, your job is just to convey. Your job is just to help other people in charity. Okay, the reason why the word salah, the command to make salah, is always fixed with the command to give charity, to give sadaqah. Okay, that is because these two actually go in line. Okay, if you just make salah but you never give sadaqah, it doesn't work. Okay, if you give sadaqah, it doesn't make salah, it doesn't work. Okay, these two is the most important thing. Okay, and the Prophet Muhammad SAW said in the hadith, the best of you are amongst those who are best in their speeches. Okay, and what does it mean, best in your speeches? It's how you treat other people. It's how you speak to people to begin with. It's how you approach people, and different people must be approached in a different way. Okay, if you approach people from a way whereby you just approach them anyhow, okay, they'll never They will never listen to you. Some people have a wall in front of them, okay? And some people are just open. It's very easy to speak to some people, okay? But just know that no matter how arrogant that person is, okay, whenever you are soft in your speech, most of the time, okay, most of the time, in fact, in every single conversations that I've had to deal with, okay, people will always open up, no matter how closely centered that person is. Someone who blocks off everyone from their life. Okay. If you are able to speak to them in a way whereby they can relate to you, in a way whereby you inspire them, you motivate them, okay, because you genuinely care about them, okay, then you start to realize that people will open up to you, and it's very easy for you. It's very, very easy for you, okay, to actually have tons of friends. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope this video has been helpful to you. I know I mentioned that in the beginning that I try not to use religion into this, but there's just so much lessons that we can draw from the Quran, as well as from the New Testament and the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible. We do not always need to talk about theology or history when we are talking about religious scripture. We can even talk about some other things, because the examples in the Quran, the life lessons that you can learn from the Quran, you can write a book, okay, your entire life, and you'll never run out of pages. You'll never run out of ideas to write, which is why from the past till today, volumes of work have been written on the Quran, and there are still volumes and volumes more that you can write. Just the word Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, you can write volumes upon just this. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, you can write volumes upon this. Volumes, I'm not kidding. Okay. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is always important. Always refer back to the Quran and ponder upon the Quran. The Quran is not only there for you to learn about theology, for you to learn about history, okay, for you to learn about sociology. The Quran is there for you to learn about everything. Okay, everything can be learned from the Quran. If you want to learn about everything can be learned from the Quran and the Hadiths, and how the Prophet actually engaged with people. Study the life of the Prophet Muhammad SAW, how he dealt with the Christians from Yemen, okay, how he dealt with the Jews of his time, okay, how did he speak to the rabbis, how did he speak to the people around him, okay, when the Meccans have been persecuting, killing off his companion, and what did he do when he enters Makkah? Yeah. God has forgiven all the Meccans today. There is no blemish upon you. Okay. And like the scholars and the scholars have mentioned that he has the choice. He was the strongest people of that time. Okay, strongest people of the area. Okay. Whenever he commanded, people will definitely, his companions, Rasulullah, his companion will definitely, if he decreed that, slaughter all the Meccans, halas, that will be over for the Meccans. But no, he says that you are forgiven. God has forgiven you. There is no blemish upon you. The way the Prophet Muhammad SAW, how he carries himself, okay, when the Quraysh attack him, okay, they were mutilating his companion, and when he raises his hand, his companion thought that that's it, our enemies will be over. But no, he said, forgive these people because they are ignorant, they do not know. And the Prophet Muhammad SAW, he is the one that is soft in speech. He is someone that is able to control his emotion. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is always easy to say that I'll have patience. I'll have patience, you know. But true patience is being patient in the time of calamity. True patience is being patient when in the time whereby you are being tested. It is easy for us to say, I know I'm a very patient person. Yeah, I'm a very patient person. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested you, okay, if you have iman, if you have yakin, okay, that is when patience really matters. Okay, you always have the choice to erupt, or you always have the choice, to stay calm and composed. Yeah, and to continue speaking in to continue speaking softly. And that is the true patience. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with the patient ones. Just remember that in anything. Okay, whether you are undergoing persecution, you are undergoing calamity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one through patience who will be with the patient ones. Okay, because inna lillahi wa inna lillahi raji'un. Okay, to Him we belong and to Him we will return. Okay, and just know that He decrees everything. So there is no need for us to get mad. There are much better ways for us to express our thoughts and opinions. There are much better ways for us to speak to people. And no matter what we do, we shouldn't embarrass the people in front of everyone else. Because the same way, whenever we sin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not embarrassed us, okay, has not exposed our sin, and has so much mercy towards us that He actually remove all of this sin and wipe our slate clean whenever we beg Allah for forgiveness. And so, whatever we don't want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do to us, we should not do to other people. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'll end this video here. Remember that we should always learn, continue to read. Reading is the most important thing. A lot of us today are not well read. We don't see the point of reading. We can just listen to lectures here and there, but we have gone away from the Qur'an and the Sunnah. The commandment of the Qur'an is Iqra. The very first word to be revealed, Iqra, means read, recite, proclaim. Okay? And the Qur'an orders us to read. And so we should read. Okay? The Qur'an orders us to learn, and so we should learn. We should always manage our time wisely. During the day, most of us spend 10, 12 hours working, 8 hours sleeping, so we are left with 4 hours. It's what we do with these 4 hours is very crucial. Yeah, it's what we do within these 4 hours is very crucial. We should read the Quran. Okay, that's the most important thing. We should read the Quran as much as possible. If we can't read the Arabic, we read the English, or we read whatever is in your native language. But you have to understand the message of the Quran. You have to understand the message of the Quran. The ulama says that even when you read the translation of the Quran, you will still be rewarded. But also at the same time, you should learn to read the Arabic of the Quran, because that is the Quran. Yeah, the translation is not the Quran. That is just an interpretation of the Quran. Okay, the Quran can never be translated. Okay, the Quran can never be translated. Yes, that's Kalamullah. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we should avoid all these philosophical questions. Is the Quran created? Is the text of the Quran created? What is the Quran? All this and that. When we ourselves are not well versed in the fundamentals, we should avoid all this, because you will not be asked is the Quran created or not on the day of judgment. It's your amal. Okay, it's what you do. It's your practicality of it. You're reciting. Okay, you're reciting Alif Lam Mim in itself is reward. It is not, for example, Alif Lam Mim as a whole, but every single alphabet Alif Lam Mim, you will be rewarded. But you should not have this intention that you want to read the Quran because you want to be rewarded. so that you have a lot of rewards, so that on the day of judgment you can be entered into Jannah. But you remember that we do not enter Jannah based on our good deeds. Okay, we only enter Jannah based on the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so in everything we do, we should only want to earn the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, everything we do, fisabilillah, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We shouldn't give in charity because we want to be seen. Okay, remember the hadith that your right hand doesn't know what your left hand does, and vice versa. For example, if your right hand gave $10 to the masjid, your other people doesn't know that you do this. You do this in secretion, okay, in secret. Okay. You shouldn't post on social media that you go to Mecca and things like that. The world doesn't need to know. Okay, because the world doesn't need to know. And some comments that you receive, all these comments that you receive, it feeds your ego. And a lot of people say there's nothing wrong in posting all this. Okay, like posting you making iftar in the masjid, posting you reading the Qur'an and things like that. Okay, unless you have something to benefit the masses, then your post basically becomes a way of showing off. Okay, whereas you can read the Quran, but whatever you are reading, it is much better for you to actually include the verses of the Quran in your post, so people can actually benefit from it, instead of just posing that you're in Mecca. The whole world doesn't need to know. Your circle of friends doesn't need to know, because the reason you go to Mecca is to worship, to engage in ibadah. Okay, and your ibadah is with Allah alone. And so it is much better for you that you do not post all these things on social media, because at the end of the day, the least that we want to do is for people to say something and then it feeds our ego, because that is not what we want. We want to be sincere, and we want to be sincere only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, we want to be sincere in doing things, in doing ibadah, and the intention should be only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Now, some people will counter this and say that, I'm posting so that I can influence people. Okay, I can do this, I can motivate people to save up and things like that, But at the end of the day, it's all up to your niyyah. Okay, it is all based on how much you are able to restrain yourself. Okay, and how much are you able to actually, without going into too much detail, it all depends. Okay, and you should be honest with yourself. What is your true intention of posting a particular photo when it comes to ibadah? Okay, I mean, if you want to post anything else, that's up to you. But when it comes to doing religious activities, this is something that you should really, really, really reconsider. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to show up in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with all our deeds that we do, but they're worthless, okay, because we are not sincere to Him. We are boastful. Some of us are very oblivious. Some of us are not cautious. Okay, if I told you there's a crocodile underneath the water, you wouldn't want to walk, close to the water. You would stay far away. And ironically, posting all these pictures on social media actually opens up the doors for you to actually open up the doors for people to actually feed your ego. And this is detrimental to you. Okay, and so why would you want to leave yourself open, so to speak? And so anyway, it all depends on you. But the purpose of this video was, it's about an hour long, but it's how you communicate with people that is very important. It's how you engage with people. You should engage with them kindly, softly, and you should learn about them. And you shouldn't always, you should not at all think that you are better than them, because you're not. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who grant you ilm, and you should always be thankful. Anyway, I digress. I'll see you on my next video. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.